You can get ad-free episodes of the Forest School podcast, as well as bonus episodes and exclusive access to upcoming guests to ask them questions before anybody else finds out about it, simply by visiting patreon.com/Children of the Forest. Huge thanks to our Patreon. This episode wouldn't have been possible without Emma, Candice, Sarah, Claire, Heidi, Louise, Michael and Anna. Thank you so much for supporting this work. If you would like to join our patrons and get access to our bonus podcasts, then you can head to patreon.com/Children of the Forest. I'm gonna take my microphone and lean back like a professional podcaster.
We're in the woods and the weather is just stunning.
It's joyful.
The sky could not be bluer. The leaves could not be greener.
Oh, and you've got to appreciate it, haven't you? It doesn't seem that many weeks ago that it was biting cold and
just raining all the time,
low arousal.
every day.
Let's do more structure than we might normally do. Have loads of games up our sleeve.
Yeah.
Now it's you could just write on the board, "Hello, be in the woods.
Yeah.
See you at 3.
Enjoy.
And
yeah.
But do you know what I was reflecting on? Is actually I've seen a real interesting thing where some people who have been high status over the winter, because they also come with games and ideas and follow me, or this is my plan, or this is my play scheme, that as and people were following them, and this happens every year. I think it's really interesting. Then as it becomes more enjoyable to just sit in a hammock, but that some people still have that same play need where they're hey, come play my game. But now where everyone's well, I don't need to run around and keep warm now, I'm actually going to sit here and chill. And people being a bit thrown by that.
Challenges. Yeah.
It's very interesting. We had joyful, you could not have asked for better weather for the conference, for the Southwest Restore and Reconnect.
Yes.
2.
Yes.
This time.
Yeah. It was
personal.
Amazing. So lots of folks, not all the Forest School folk, but lots of Forest School folk from Devon, Dorset, Cornwall, Somerset.
Slightly over 100 people, Wiltshire. I think, were all there.
Yeah, and some people came further afield just for jokes and take part.
Yeah.
And lovely sight with a beautiful meadow and a forest and the magic teapot tent, which is a wooden yurty type thing, but really cool. Lush food, nice people. If you're ever teetering on the brink of going to a Forest School gathering and you think, oh, it's a bit expensive, or oh, it's a bit far to go, oh my God, 100% worth it. Because, we all have to do our CPD anyway, right?
Yeah.
Every year. And as well as being a CPD, it's just a renewal in your faith. Do you know what I mean? Isn't it?
It's so nice. And I'm sure we've said this on every podcast we've ever done after a conference or a meet-up, where we just go, oh, there's a base level of understanding between people that you meet, that there is this shared thing that the rest of your life, especially if you're in a school where you might be constantly feeling like you're banging a drum that nobody else is joining in with, to be able to go and just be oh, we don't have to have that conversation because you all get it. We're all there already. And then you get into the nuances of oh, you're inside this circle. Oh, you're over here, right? Oh, that's really interesting. I've always been over here. Why are you over here? And you're really it's like turning the whetstone over, going from a coarse sharpen to that fine sharpen where you're ooh, okay, we're really getting into some polishing here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lovely mix of you can choose the workshops you do, and you can do some crafty, artsy ones, so I chose making natural paint, and we already do a fair amount of that here sometimes, but it was just that is a time to play and just be creative and just focus on that.
Yeah.
And then some other more debatey. Well, how did you describe the choice of workshops? I
said it was either holding space. So either way, you go to one where someone's holding space. They go, here's a topic, we all need to chew it through. I will chair this.
Yeah.
In more or less words. Some people don't know that's what they're doing, but that's what they're doing. Or making shit.
Or info dump.
Which is the third one where you go there, which is what we did. Where we just went blah, blah, blah.
Have some information.
Talk about that for like 5 minutes because we're going to do another bit in a minute.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
Absorb this, whether you like it or not.
And also that we picked we picked in huge topics of like unconditional relationships, non-violent communication and declarative language.
Yeah.
All of which are like...
You could run a 2-day course on any of those, we crammed all 3 into 2 hours.
But we did keep joking, going, like, after sort of 20 minutes of talking and then going, okay, have you got that? Changed your life? Good, we're going to move on to a different thing now. Go.
Solved it? Solved humans, yeah?
Solved it, yes.
Humans, tick.
Carry on.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is lush and nice to meet new people as well, or people that you've only, like, seen their work online or...
oh, it's you!
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And sharing all those, like, I would say in the Southwest, more so than at the national conference, there was more independent, self-employed people. The national conference, I felt like, this is not a bad thing, lots of people there were like, I do this part-time and I'm a teacher, or I do this part-time and I'm a outdoor event. Whereas lots of people at the Southwest one were like, we are an independent forest school, we're an independent this. And so sharing the, like, this is really going to sound tedious if you're not in the world, but like the admin side of like, how are you collecting payments? Or do you do like chasing up of invoices? Or do you, like, how have you found the climate for the last year financially? Like, are you marketing this or are you going down there? That stuff that you might think it's hard to talk about because you might think it's a small pond and like, can't give away this, but actually everyone's so open and so like, we can share this thing. And Sarah Lawful was there, so she's chair of the FSA, and gave a speech and kind of G'd us all up on, saving the world with Forest School and Nature Premium and all these kind of other amazing things that are going on inside the Forest School world. I'm excited for the national one at Danbury in October.
Yeah!
Should be cool!
Yeah.
Whoa.
I'm Wem.
And I'm Lewis.
This is the Forest School Podcast.
Let's go!
But today...
We've got, if we were going to divide up our podcast topics into info dump.
Holding space.
Holding space. And I think it needs to be like info dump or waffle chat or like book review or interview.
We've been talking to lots of people about their books. Maybe we need a waffle chat, or you and I have just done nothing but waffle chats for a bit. Maybe we need someone who knows what they're talking about.
But this is 100% waffle, 100% of the time.
It's not. We're holding space for other people that aren't here.
Oh, okay.
We've already held the space,
and now we're debriefing on it.
We're now debriefing and holding. So it was one of those like light bulb moments where there's a question that comes up quite a lot in our practice, probably comes up in a lot of practice, where kids have got this level of like autonomy. They fully are on board with, don't have to do these things. And the question that comes up is the kids will run up while you're starting something in the kitchen and go, do we have to cook or can we just eat it? And I think there's some clarification to make here, which is that what we're going to talk about today is not sustenance cooking. So if we were doing soups or breads or like lunch, things that are like second breakfast, those things are always
where we're meeting a need for food, warmth, that kind of thing.
What we're talking about is like
cooking as an activity, as a little extra,
a decadent thing,
a little nice thing.
Doesn't produce a lot of food, like cookies or something. Where you're like, the cookies that it ends up with will be,
That's an important distinction to make, because we're not going to be like discussing whether or not to withhold food from someone when it's like a need.
So
absolutely.
We're talking about frivolous cooking for fun.
And also, I think it's important to say that question, I think, doesn't just come up organically. It probably comes up also because historically, through our practice, there have been times where we have had to say we're all making our own for this.
Yeah.
So COVID-y times, where it's like there's a culture, there's a climate of like, this is risky. This is like additionally risky to normal. Like you are already putting like quite a lot of trust and faith in somebody if they are cooking for you. You're trusting they will have washed their hands, that they're not going to lick the spoon and put it back in. They're not going to sneeze all over it. If they do, they're going to admit it. Or, in a normal climate, But when COVID was around, that's like extra heightened, isn't it? And it's like, how do we minimise the risk? How do we still cook, but we minimise the risk? So we would do things where we're all making our own bread roll, or we're all making our own. So
we're all going to make dough on a plate each.
Yeah, exactly.
And we'll cook that individually.
Exactly.
And taking away that communal element.
So I think we've had to broadcast that at the time and say, with this one, just to let you guys know, if you do want to eat the bread, we are going to make our own. So if you want to eat, you will need to stop what you're doing right now to come and
it was like a legal requirement. We cannot cook for you.
Yeah, well, it wasn't. It was our risk management, wasn't it? And that was the case. So I think probably that I would be interested to know whether that question of like, do we have to cook our own, or can we just eat? Whether that question would still come up if we hadn't had that historical practice, if you know what I mean.
Thanks to everybody that's rating and reviewing on Spotify and iTunes. It really helps us to find new listeners and share what we're doing with more and more people.
And there might be other reasons why we want to do it that way. It might be that we've just been doing like do you know what I mean? Like it might not just be COVID related. There might be times when legitimately it is about we are making our own thing for various, or we're choosing the flavours that we want to put in our own whatever.
Yeah, I would say sometimes it's to do with like if you're making something that can be shaped is often an example where someone wants to make, because then there's a bit more ownership over like I made the gingerbread person shape and a dinosaur and a swirl.
And I'm taking one home for my mum.
I'm taking one home for my mum, and I want to eat the other two because I've made that. I chose those shapes, and that's very. Then sometimes people will take that and then go shout out to the woods in general and go, "Oh, we're going to make some like just circle ones," or like, "Hey, Billy Bob, do you want me to make you another person?" Which is fine, but.
And that's really interesting, isn't it? That you do get that a lot as a people kind of offering a gift to others and go,
service.
"Oh, I know you're kind of busy, but I will make you some extra ones, and the ones I've made for you are star shaped or whatever."
They're the poo blobs that I didn't want.
Maybe. And definitely that giving some learners the opportunity to cook for others. There've been times
massive social tool.
It's huge, isn't it? It's just such a gift, and also it's a like a really let's like call it a co-regulation activity that some learners will be in a bit of like they're at the end of a play cycle. They're kind of looking around and going, "Well, I don't really fancy doing that or that or that or that. I just actually want to be with an adult for a bit, and I'm helping. This is great. Yeah. Like, how lovely is that? It just goes in that kind of bag of jobs, like forest jobs.
Yeah, splitting wood for the fun.
Yeah, exactly. Which is just a really lovely thing to do together for lots of reasons. So kind of those issues aside, then we just wanted to talk about if the sort of moral or ethical element, I guess, is what we're trying to dig.
Ownership, I think, comes into it as well.
Yeah. So that question of like, if you want to eat it, do you have to cook it? When that's asked in this context that we're talking about, is really like, kind of like, can I get away with not doing the work but still enjoy the result? Like that's the kind of that's what we're talking about, right? Do you think? Do you agree?
Well, I think there's something about even the choice of words of like, do we have to cook?
Yeah.
There's a demand in there. There's a like obligation in there. There's not. It's not like because you could reframe like, I suppose need would have the same words, but. You could, if you could reframe it, I suppose you could just ask the question of like, will we be able to eat it? Will we all get some later?
Yes.
And that's a different question to, do we have to cook?
Yes. And also...
You could say, is it for everyone?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost like they subconsciously know that what they're asking is cheeky or a request or a... No, cheeky is the wrong word.
Yeah.
That's not the intention.
Yeah.
It's like they're aware that it's like... low level, maybe this is the wrong word, like burdensome. They're aware that there is work going in, or there is effort going in, perhaps.
Yeah, I was going to try to reframe this without any kind of judgment on it. And you could go, are they actually saying, hi, I will have a need to eat that later, but right now I have a need to play my own game.
Yeah.
And so what's the deal? Like, that is the like non-judgmental, you know, laying out of needs. And our practice kind of got to the point where when an issue like comes up to do with how we are together in the woods, then we've tried to like raise it in a like sometimes like in a sociocratic way. Sometimes we'll do it like this time we did it while we were doing snacks. So sometimes we might do it in morning circle. If it's something like we feel like this is a really important issue and we need everybody's full attention on it, we might do it in like the morning circle. We might take notes and write stuff up and come back to it like agreements, you know. So we don't have rules, for example. We have forest school like agreements or like what do we call them? Like I don't know. They were like.
I don't know.
No,
it occurred to me the other day that you were talking about, actually, occurred to me how we've done this is very whole brain child.
Yeah.
That Ross Green.
No, Daniel Siegel.
Daniel Siegel, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Daniel Siegel. That thing of like, if it was a one-to-one conversation, you'd have gone up and gone, hey, are you busy? Hey, I noticed that when X, this was happening. What's going on with that?
Oh, that is Ross Green. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. I noticed something. What's up?
I noticed that. What's up? And you just raise it as a like, with no judgment.
Yeah.
And we basically did that to the group.
Yeah.
Hey, we noticed that you keep asking us this question, or this question just keeps coming up. So
what do we think?
Let's just give it some time.
Yeah,
Let's give it some space.
And then because it was over snack, everyone is kind of sitting down and eating anyway, so it's not like stopping people doing things and going, right, we're going to have this meeting now. Which I know some people do in their practice, and some people, especially in like sociocratic education, are like, right, it is time for the meeting, and we are all attending the meeting.
Very
whatever.
structured.
Yeah. And then also people discover that they could leave if they weren't really interested in like this philosophical debate. They were like, this is going on quite a long time, and you're like, yeah, you can go, like you can absolutely go, like we're not going to force you to sit here and debate this issue. And then I just took some notes through it about who said what. And we were quite clear, I think, about like we're not necessarily going to come to an answer or a new rule or anything. We're just going to talk about it. And it was really interesting seeing who was interested in
who was interested, and also some people are just like, I've got a rule, I've got a solution. Let me tell you this. And like that's really interesting from a problem solving. When you hear a issue, whose gut response is like, I can solve this, and who is like, I just need to say this thing, and like that's not always linked to age or developmental stage or anything like that. It's just like a personality thing, but it tells you so much about how people will probably enter into social discussions as well, which it was. I found it very interesting because it was a really good example of there was one point where I became conscious that I was almost going up head to head against like a 9-year-old in a very like positive way. I wasn't saying anything like, no, you're wrong because of this, or like, and they weren't saying, no, we can't run this because of this. We were both talking. It was like we were both talking to you as you were holding the space. But then I became increasingly conscious of like, oh shit, there's a hierarchy here, and I actually need to rapidly pull back and stop because I've said my piece and this person's disagreed with it, and I have just treated them like another human being and gone, well, I'm going to explain my piece in a different way, or can I clarify what you're saying? And I was like, oh, no, I'm an adult here. I need to like pull this massively.
And I think that is worth noting, because also I think we've got to remember like our own needs as part of this. So definitely, I think you brought it to the table as an idea, like I really want to talk about this. And that speaks to a need that you have in terms of how...
Passing the buck. I just didn't want to answer the question.
No. I think also like... I'm trying to remember.
I wanted to value what they were saying, but also it was like I didn't have the answer.
Yeah.
And I needed that decision not to have come down on me. Again, in that way of like, I feel like you're asking me to make a decision. When they come up and say, do we have to cook or can we just eat it?
Yeah.
It was like, I felt unprepared and like I didn't have the authority to answer that question.
Yes, and also I think there is a thing about like, so say you are a practitioner and you're like, for example, like giving all the time. Like you're going, I bring in these resources and I'm working and I'm doing this stuff and I'm doing this stuff. And that without meaning to, some learners might go, oh yeah, so you're just going to like do everything for me. You're just going to like cook me like loads of lost food and I'm just going to eat it and then like run away and like...
Fuck you.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
And I think that is in it because I think that maybe things like that happened quite a lot. Do you know? It's how you hear. Do we have to cook or can we just eat it? It's how you hear that in the moment.
Yeah.
So if you're if as a practitioner you're in a really great place right now, your needs are being met, your bucket isn't overflowing, and you hear that question, you're like, oh cool, yeah, whatever, I'm just cooking, so yeah, we'll see, you know. But if you're not in a great place and you're feeling like, oh, I'm kind of wading through treacle right now and I've had this difficult interaction and I've come from home and this has been hard and la 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 la, and then someone comes up to you and you just hear it. You hear it in the voice of, can you just like make me some food because I'm like really busy right here? And you're like, okay, that's fine. And you have to kind of like accept that, and also accept that like that you're going to have different reactions and different emotions entangled within this.
Oh, and on different days and in different, you know.
Certainly. And also that any other members of the group who might be helping to cook or doing the cooking will also experience that, you know. So sometimes people are cooking, like we said, about like doing an act of service and going, I'm just really enjoying like this process of just like making more and like feeding my friends, and oh, they're so happy and I want to make more, and I've nailed it and I know the recipe and I know how long to cook it for, and it's just like, oh, it's in my zone of competence and I'm really loving it. And there's definitely other times where, you know, their friends might come up to them and go, oh, can you like make me one because I'm like really busy? And they might also feel that like slight indignation of like, like that sense of injustice or
Can I raise at this point then that we did, not only did we ask the group, do you have to cook? I just put that question up in quotes. Do you have to cook or can you just eat it? And then we had some follow-up questions which are really relevant to this, because the follow-up questions were why or why not, and some people just couldn't get to them. Or couldn't get to very deep into that, you know. But we also put up who gets to answer that question, who gets to decide. Is it the whole group gets to decide? Is it and this might be in the moment, do the chefs get to decide? Do the people who are asking the question but they don't want to cook, are they the ones that get to decide? And that actually opened up more avenues of conversation, I think.
Well, that was like, what is a democracy? Do you know what I mean? And that's what I bloody love about Forest School, that you can go, it is like, it's a society in microcosm, and it's like, how do you govern? How do you...
Some of them are. Some practice doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, not all practice looks like this. There was a moment that represented that.
And it just really reminded me of that article by Peter Gray, which we did a podcast about ages ago, about like democracy through play. It was like how free play... kind of teaches in inverted commas like how to be in a democracy and how to like hold everybody's rights with equal regard, that your rights are no more important than other people's. And I just wanted to, this is slightly changing tangent, but looking at the notes that I've made, I thought another interesting point was that one person raised in this, like, quite near the beginning, so some thoughts started flowing, and then one person just said, can I just say, in this debate, I think we shouldn't blame anyone. And I was like, okay, let's go with that. Let's go with, we're going to have this without, because inevitably it does get to be like, oh yeah, that one time I cooked for you, and then you ate it all, and you know, and to just say it out there and go, we shouldn't like blame anyone, I thought was like astonishing. You know, there's these little astonishing moments of like wisdom, or, you know, throughout it.
I heard that differently.
Did you?
See, I heard that same nugget of wisdom
as a guilt,
and self-protection, and a sudden realization that maybe the tide was going to shift, and are like, I would like to put some still true, still like, and it's still valuable. I just heard the point of origin
that as an expression of
as differently,
vulnerability,
as like, ooh, I'm actually it wasn't altruistic. I heard it as like, I'm worried I'm going to get told off. This might get turned around to point at me, because I think this might be coming to point at me in a minute, so I'm just going to put this up. And it was valuable that it got put up, because it doesn't matter.
You can't discuss stuff if you're scared, can you?
Yeah,
you can't.
And it doesn't matter where that idea came from, but it was interesting that you and I heard that comment from different origins. Still valuable, still really useful to carry forwards. But yeah, I think that's an interesting topic about like all debates.
Yeah.
That like you're going to hear the same bit of speech, but understanding, or you feel like you understand different points to come from.
There was a interesting little to and fro between some people about, so one person said, I think we should choose to cook and choose whether to eat it, because sometimes you're playing with your friends and it's exciting and you don't want to stop, but you do want to eat it. And then another person was like, yeah, but you have to choose, like, which one do you want to do more? Like, if you want to eat, you've got to stop playing and you've got to choose, like, you've got to, which one do you want to do more? And if you don't choose and and someone said, oh, well, what if you change your mind? What if you really wanted to do the playing and then you changed your mind? Too late. Like, that's too late.
Well, some people were viewing the cooking and eating as one unbreakable thing. Do you know what I mean? The cooking and eating are one activity, and so you can choose to do that or not do that. Some people were viewing it as cooking, eating.
Yeah,
those are two separate activities, and I want to do one of them. I don't want to do the other one. So it was interesting, that viewpoint, and like how many things like that come up, not just in terms of cooking, but lots of other activities that might be like in a classroom setting. It might be like, well, if you want to do the painting, you have to. And quite often, I think cooking is an interesting one because the work comes first. Whereas, so the other example might be, you did the painting,
so clear up,
so you have to tidy up. But you've already done the fun bit. So you don't want to do the tidy up. Whereas, I know there's washing up and stuff to do, but actually cooking is interesting because it has the less I'm using air quotes here, less enjoyable bit.
You will never need to go back to mundane marshmallows ever again. My book, Forest School Cooking, covers everything from how to build ovens to cooking in new and exciting ways, and a whole load of easy and amazing recipes that your groups will love. Order your copy today on Amazon.
And also, but it also depends on what the cooking is. So sometimes the cooking is like, you could definitely put it into the play category, and sometimes you're like, questionable whether I could put that into the play category, because sometimes it's like sensory fun, it's like kneading the dough and it's warm and it's lovely, or you're putting things that are colourful or smell great, or do you know what I mean? It's like exciting in its own right. And sometimes it is just, we just have to do loads of the same repetitive action, and it's quite dull actually, or it's quite
monotonous.
Or it's it's too easy, or it's too hard, talking about those zones of competence.
Or even it can be that this happens at home and it's a chore for me at home, and so I don't want to do that chore. Here in my
the flip side, I'm never involved in cooking at home, so therefore to me it is like a massive unintelligible thing that I really don't understand, because it's like cooking. Like, it's too huge. It's not.
You have this table of ingredients and then food.
What am I meant to do with that? And
executive function.
Exactly that. Yeah. And then some people are like, I do this at home. I'm very proud of that. I can show you that actually, and loads of those discussions come up, I find, when you're cooking, that some people go, actually, do you know what? I have a recipe that I cook this, and I cook it without any adult help, and I'm really proud of it. And can I do it at Forest School? And all those kind of things. And it's like Nick Elvey would have loads to say about this, right? Sure. From Curious School of the World, like food and cooking is her thing, and there's so much, because it is so vital to human survival. We're talking about something way bigger than playing with clay or like chopping. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's massive. One person did raise. And this was quite a young member of the group, was like, well, if someone wants to help, but the chefs have already finished, for example, that was another thing. It's like, what if we've decided that you have to cook in order to eat it, but you turn up and like the cooking's already happened, but then you could do other stuff, like you could help light the fire, you could find a different job to help. And they were going, it's cooperation and all that kind of thing. So they were like, some people could chop the wood, some people could light the fire, some people could tidy up. All those kind of extra things, which also feed into it. And then the issue came up, what about like... And then someone said, I think you said, it depends if cooking is work or a gift, you said.
So I was trying to explain that. I think for me, and again, this was partly like me being involved in the debate, but also I was trying to explain to them how I feel when the question gets asked of me. And it ties back to that thing of who gets to decide. And I was saying that if I make something and I feel like I've got ownership and I'm giving it, that feels very different to starting it knowing I'm doing work. Like, you know, like, because I've lost ownership over it.
Well, and also there's another element to that, which is that sometimes we will make stuff because the group have decided they want to do it.
Yeah.
So like the previous week, we'll say like, you know, if we're planning the following session and go, obviously loads of stuff can just happen. You can just decide in the moment. But things that we do need to plan are like, if you want to make a specific thing, I need to go and buy the ingredients. So they might say, okay, yeah, we really want to make chocolate chip cookies. So you're like, okay, you have told me, like, I don't really have much invested in that, but I will meet that need. Yeah. And so you go out and you spend the company money on all the ingredients for chocolate chip cookies, and they're like, don't want to do it, can you just make it for me? So that is also like entangled within it. And then you start pulling the lens wider and going, okay, well, you know, if we're talking about who gets to decide, like we're using wood from the forest in order to light the fire, we are using money that is basically your guys' money, because we're using the budget of, you know, the resources budget to make something that some people have chosen to do, and all of those like. And
that's where we got into, like, because some people were saying the chefs they took it really, you know, really went as a thought experiment, like, so the chefs should get to decide, and there was some interesting stuff about the chefs should each get 2 and everyone else should get 1.
Yes.
There's a really like minutiae of like, no, everyone should get the same, but then any that's left, the chefs get, which is interesting maths and remainders and stuff. But then, you raised that point about like, well, this is everybody's money. If one person really enjoys cooking, but they get to decide what happens to it, is everybody then paying for that one person to make and eat pancakes every week? Yeah. And is that okay?
Yeah.
If just because they enjoy cooking, we're all subsidising their...
I don't think I put it quite like that.
Like I'm trying... Yeah, go on, tell me... Or how do you feel about?
Because the way you
say it,
the way you phrase that sounds very I don't know, judgmental. Because I would say, that's fine. Like, if someone has that need, flipping, go for it. It's flour and milk. Do you know what I mean? That makes me sound like, wait a minute, I have, and I'm making all the children aware.
Hang on, you've had 23 grams of flour.
And I'm making all the children aware of the financial decisions of the company. They should bear that burden, which obviously I'm not ever going to do. And we very seldom raise money ever. Like, I don't raise the issue of money with the group, except when we've done some little experiments with Sociocratic stuff about like, you know, having little circles and talking about resources and going, okay, you know, you guys get to plan. So we very, very rarely talk about that.
I would say the most we might get is like, I've only brought enough stuff for every person to get 2, or like if we put all of this bar of chocolate in this one, then there won't be any for this. But rarely do we go like, this is £6.23.
Exactly.
Are you aware of what the cost of living crisis is, mate?
Exactly.
Do you know?
So I can't really remember how I raised up the money.
In a nicer way than I've just said.
Not that. I think it just came along.
It's just important that I said it better than you.
Oh,
so
my God.
What you...
So in the notes, it says other considerations: money, the trees, wood, and building the kitchen. That was another thing that you raised. Is like, well, you know, if you're kind of extrapolate, you know, looking at these ripple effects of like, well, I didn't literally physically mix the ingredients, but I did help build the kitchen 6 months ago that you are now cooking in. And if you would, or I built the fire pit, you know, and it is that kind of, I think that, I mean, the answer to this question is, it depends. That's always the answer,
course, right?
Isn't it?
If anybody's listened this far and gone, God, I can't wait till they tell us the answer. Like, good luck. Keep listening, because we will say it at the end.
Yeah.
We will tell you. No, we're not going to.
And I think,
we're not going to tell you the answer.
Do you know what I think? I think it's like the ebb and flow of life, about like giving and receiving and doing stuff, and some people would call that karma. You know?
It'll all come out in the wash.
It'll all come out in the wash. Like, I did this thing, and then, but the important thing is that people feel that they've got the space to speak if they feel like they're being taken advantage of, or there's an injustice, or that they have the. I think what we're doing is actually the topic is irrelevant. It's the fact that we were able to have that discussion and go, here's a thing, and what do people think about it? And here's an issue that we've noticed kind of poking its head above the parapet, like repeatedly.
Do you think you... Sorry to talk across you. Do you think you could ask this question every time you cook? Do you think there would be...
I think that would be really icky.
Do you think so? That's what I was just wondering, as a thought experiment, whether you had that, like, oh, hey, we've got the stuff to cook, what do we reckon? Whether something about it being short but frequent would land the group in a decision, or whether that would then make, like you say, like it make it really icky and make them go,
I think it's got the potential to kill the joy and kill the flow, and also it does it. I think what you don't want, I don't think, is to have this this like tit for tat kind of
quid pro quo
all the time, because then you could, as you say, we're talking about cooking, but then you could start doing that with everything, and that's true. Not really that's not the mindset I would wish to instill in people.
Can I raise then, this is a separate point, someone's just fallen out of a tree, a squirrel maybe, anyway, talking about people being able to say that they feel if they're being taken advantage of, or that this, something is imbalanced. We also talked afterwards about there being sensory needs around cooking.
Yes.
And as you were saying that, I was thinking that might be something that someone is way less comfortable voicing. Particularly young learners might not have even the word, they might know instinctively.
I don't like it.
I don't want to touch that. I don't want to touch the peppers and chop them up. But that's not in the front of their brain, wordy prefrontal cortex. Is that this bit? It just might be a like pepper, not like pepper, don't do it. But so you can't voice that with the group and go, in the most rational way, be like, hi everyone, I have a need to not touch peppers, so I was wondering if you guys would be able to maybe do the cooking today for me, because it's got peppers in it. I would still really like to eat it. It's just sensorily that conversation is not going to happen. Maybe we could model some more of that. We could be talking about our own sensory things, or when we're cooking, going like, do you know what? I thought this was going to feel icky, and actually I feel okay with
And
this.
I actually wish that we'd brought up this issue earlier in this podcast, because we did bring it up in the conversation.
Yeah.
And just that idea of like forcing somebody to do it to get a reward. It's rewards and punishments, isn't it?
It is, if you see because we're talking about frivolous cooking, and potentially you could see that as a reward. Yeah,
or like the food at the end could be seen as the reward, but you're punishing somebody in order to get it through like, I'm going to make you put your hands in the stuff that you don't want to touch right now, or I'm going to make you stop doing the thing you really want to do to come and do this thing you don't want to do. Like,
I also think,
what's the difference between that and you have to do your maths now? Like, nothing.
Well, no, I don't disagree with that. Sorry, it sounded like I was going to disagree with you. I don't. I was just thinking about the community bonding aspect of eating. Yes. And that, like, are you saying that in order to take part in this bonding activity, you must, go through this thing? And then I was thinking about how unintentionally great it is that quite often with our home ed and with our toddler groups, or actually with any group, when there's eating to be done, when there's food to be eaten, we quite often pair that with a story or with something else. And I actually think this is good, because if you're not eating, you are still in the community bonding bit. You are still in the circle. You're still because everyone's. But if you sat down and you were all, because I was a fussy eater as a child, like incredibly fussy, and not just as a child, like way into my 20s, and even still now, I'm quite fussy about food, and I would not eat at places where I felt uncomfortable about the food, and also I'm quite social. I have not, super socially adept, and so you double down the like, I don't have anything to do, so I've got to double down on the socializing bit, but I'm also really bad at that. So I can remember sitting at like, sometimes my grandparents would go to like very posh hotels, that do like dinner service and stuff, and I remember like sitting in front of like empty plates for like the first 3 courses, because all I wanted was the sorbet at the end, and that being like, oh, not only am I not eating, I'm also not in this social thing, because everybody's looking at, why am I not doing this thing? So on top of on top of it's saying you have to cook to get into this, like, to reward of food.
Yeah.
We're also saying the reward of community bonding is
withheld from some people
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I think that's really important to raise, that with phrasing like the eating as a reward. But actually, for some people, that is not a reward. That is an incredibly stressful experience, like you say, to be kind of going, everybody, the chefs have made this delicious food, come join. And some people are going to be like, I want to actually be sick now. And I feel a lot of pressure to eat that thing. And everyone's going to look, I think that's a really valid point.
Especially
to make.
The food that we make in the woods. Like, it is never presentation food. This is not like... This
sometimes
is like, here it is in a bowl.
Sometimes it looks
Eat your
really...
sugar slop.
Yeah, it looks really nice to the eye, and you only realise that it isn't when you take a photo of it. I don't know why that is.
Especially no one has ever taken a picture of appetising food in rainbow-coloured IKEA bowls.
Yeah.
That is why all chef's food is on white plates.
No.
Because fucking IKEA bowl, you got like the blue hue on your chocolate cake.
Yes. Yeah, and a slight melted bit of the bowl where it's been too close to the fire at one point.
It's got Sharpie on it that says "Children of the because it's come up in the dishwasher.
Yeah.
We're not selling the food that way, are we? Really, it's got to.
Applications for Forest School leader training at Children of the Forest are now open. Come and learn with me and Wem at our private woodland down in Devon. Find out more by heading to myforestschooltraining.co.uk. See you there.
Oh my God. I mean, I just feel my brain now is going off down about 20,000 rabbit holes. It's like, this is interesting and this is interesting. And it's all to do with food in the woods. And it's not actually anything to do with like, do you have to cook to eat?
Yeah, this is a separate topic as food in the woods, I think. But just to go back to the like, do you have to... That I'm going to just... a bit like a debate topic. Just keep repeating it. Like, do you have to cook?
No.
Or can you just eat?
No.
Oh, we said we weren't going to give them the answer.
I've got the answer now.
Hold
You don't have to cook, no.
That's going in the Patreon one. Jeez.
I wrote the answer.
To
find out the answer.
Moron. How are we going to make any money if you keep giving them the answer?
This many pounds a month, listeners, you can discover the answer to this very niche question.
I'm going to beep it out. I'm going to beep it out and then...
Oh, wow. Well, as ever, I feel like this podcast has like opened up more questions than it's answered, but that's good.
Can I ask, do
Yes.
you think the same question, because we haven't asked it, but do you think we would get a similar question if we asked a group of children and adults, like toddler groups or family festivals or something where people are with their parents?
I think that... Oh, well, that's another whole issue, because at family festivals...
Parent theatre?
Yeah,
Sorry.
a little bit. I said this to you the other day. I can't remember if it's a family festival or a toddler group or what. And I was talking about, do we do like a big involved cook that involves lots of chopping within a certain time frame to... It's a squirrel. To get the soup. I think it was a soup thing.
Yeah.
Because they might not want to do it, but people will
feel obligated.
People will feel obligated because they want to be kind. Yes. And I was saying that often it's the people who already do that job a lot at home that therefore understand the job and understand the time pressures involved to get to an end result within a certain time, and therefore the people who have to do it a lot, end up doing it a lot at home, are the people who then will go, okay, yeah, I'll do it here as well. And that if what we are trying to do is give them a gift of time and space to like meet their needs in the forest for a couple of hours, is it fair to do a cook? Because I think we were talking about like, do we just do it? Do we just get on with it and do a lot of prep beforehand, or do we offer people the opportunity to do it? And it's great to give people the opportunity if they genuinely want to, but how to like dig through all those layers of like, actually, I don't really want to, and I do kind of view this as a bit of a chore.
In a couple of hours. Just smash through that psychology in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And also there's something in what you've just said about it is often rarer that young people have the onus of cooking at home. Some people definitely do. Some young people absolutely do. And I would really be interested to see if there's any correlation between people of any age, young people, adults, whoever, or correlation between onus of cooking. I'm going to use the word onus because I think that is actually more specific than does cooking. Do you have the onus of cooking at home, and then do you enjoy voluntarily doing cooking when you come to a forest school session or a whatever session this, because I can fully see that going both ways. I can see that being, like you say, like okay, the onus is already on me at home, so I see this as a chore, so I see this as whatever, so I want to do it less. Also, I can see that being a like really self-esteem building. Oh, I've got these skills. Let
me show them off and share them.
Let me be, let me be high status for a bit. Let me kind of knock through this, and it would be really I'm not sure you could ever do that study efficiently, because how do you find onus? But yeah, I think it's really interesting. I'd be really interested to know, one, if anybody listening, if you've ever asked this to your group, actually asked it rather than come up with a rule, and also whether, like, how many settings does this actually even come up as a topic? Thinking about, like, this would never have come up for me in a school.
No, but I think that it goes beyond, the question goes beyond the cooking example. It goes into realms of like tidying up. Whose role is that to tidy up? And different practitioners will address that in different ways. And Bob Hughes puts it as one of the questions at the end of Evolutionary Playwork, about like if playwork is about giving children or people the opportunity to play and meet their needs, and you are facilitating that, and it's about free choice and intrinsic motivation, where does tidying up fit in that? Like, that is very, sometimes it might be free choice and sometimes it might be intrinsic motivation, but for lots of people it isn't ever going to be that. So do you just take that on the chin and go, I am going to be the sole tidy upper, or are you going to put it to the group? And I guess it's like anything where you're kind of going, this particular behaviour I'm going to view as pro-social. Cooking for other people, helping to tidy up. I can think of, there's probably lots of other things in there, like, taking care of the woods jobs. So we've sometimes put that as part of our planning a long time ago now, but sometimes we've done, the settling, and I think some other practitioners will do this as well, like part of settling in is choose one of the jobs to help towards camp jobs, so there's like pro-social behaviours, and if your aim is to get there, how do you get there if that is your aim? So if you're kind of viewing your practice as trying to move people towards more pro-social behaviours for a variety of reasons, if you are, do you do that through rules, through routines, through debates, through free choice? Are you just going to model it and hope that some of it comes, it's massive, it's beyond cooking. And everyone's going to be on a different place on that sliding scale, aren't they, in terms of like, well, yes, because, and it links to the co-regulation handbook that we talked about, because it's that view of like, some people might hold that view of, if I don't make them or invite them to do this helpful thing, how are they ever going to learn? Or if I, how are they're just going to waltz through life, just doing whatever they want to do and la 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 la. So some people are going to be there, and I think we're all working with learners for, I hope, the right reasons, that we're there to kind of help them on their journey to either be independence or fulfillment or whatever, and if we don't give them those opportunities, we're kind of failing them. If you have no expectations, if just like the other kids just turn up in the woods and they just do whatever the heck they want and then they go home, like, do you know what I mean? I think some people will be at different places on that spectrum, and that's fascinating to me.
Very much so. Oh, juicy. There's more juice to come out of that one, but
more juice than that orange. Yes.
Patreon episode this week for people that are signed up at patreon.com/Children of the Forest. I'm going to do you a quiz.
Are you?
I'm going to do you a quiz.
Are you?
And I'm going to see, and then the people listening can try and do the quiz as well if they are on the Patreon. Amazing. I'll leave loads of little pauses and they can see if they can do the quiz.
Oh my god.
So
I'm slightly scared but also excited.
Yeah. It's about 18th century cavalier armour. No, it's not. That'd be incredible though if I did. I'm going to do you a quiz.
Do you know what it's about?
Yeah, it's all forest school-y things.
Okay.
But Amazing. Light-hearted.
Lovely.
Right, I'll see you there.
See you there. Bye.